Hi guys, welcome to the channel. I thought I would do a quick response sort of video to Shadiversity. He recently did a video on Shogun and they talked about there's a decapitation scene in it. I actually haven't seen the scene yet. They covered the one-handed cut to see if it was effective. And the video is really cool. I love Shadiversity, so I'm not poking at them or anything like that. I love the channel. But they covered a couple of other things as well. So one of the things was the chiburi, the cleansing of the blade, which people commonly think of as you shake the blood off the blade. It's actually not technically entirely accurate. It's partially a bit of, getting rid of the blood, but there was never a claim from Japanese swordsmanship that this would entirely get rid of the blood. The chiburi action is actually also a form of closure. So, if you think about the way Japanese swordsmanship is practiced is in the context of two people dueling, or two or more people, or maybe it's not necessarily based on a battlefield scenario using the sword. As we all know, that samurai would typically use other weapons long before they would go to their sword. The sword was effectively a sidearm, really. So the chiburi, if you imagine a situation between two respected folks and you dismiss one of them, this chiburi action should encompass a few things. One is, as I said, you're kind of making your peace and closure with the situation. That's one aspect of it. There's another aspect, which is you're showing this person some degree of respect as well, that you've just dismissed. I do apologize for the wind. This is a really informal video, but yeah. So this chiburi action has several meanings, and it should be noted as well. Like I said, I haven't seen the Shogun scene, but normally if you were to do seagulls. Normally, if you were to do like an assist for somebody who's taken their own life, the seppuku, or this ritual suicide. If you were doing that sort of decapitation, you're right. They would just generally try to leave a little bit hanging there so that the person's head wouldn't roll away. That's I've heard of that as well, to save their dignity. The other thing to note is that when you did the cut, you would aim to make it a clean cut that wasn't flashy at all, very discreet, because you're not trying to show off or be flashy to this person that you're assisting, right? You're trying to help them to an honorable death. And the other thing is you wouldn't do the chiburi. Somebody would actually come along and shake, or not shake, wash the blood off the blade. Okay, so you would be holding the blade like this, some ways away from your knee. It's a little difficult to show you here. And somebody would come and they would pour water on the blade to cleanse it, and then from there you would pop it away, right? So from there, pop, and so on. Okay. Now I have the saya here, and we'll get into that in a second. I just wanted to talk about the chiburi first. So this is, as I said, really rapid, informal video. So I've made a really rubbish blood analog, but it should be close enough. It's basically sugar water thickened up and with a bunch of ketchup in it just to give it the color and thickness, but I try to get it nice and sticky. Now these swords would definitely be oiled. It's arguably that they would be a little bit more generously oiled than maybe in European martial arts. I'm not so sure. I don't know anything about HEMA. I took fencing lessons for 6 months to a year maybe. Did foil for a while. I had a friend who had his dad had a rapier and epee in the house. That's about it, so I follow the channel and I do try to learn from you guys, but as far as looking after these, you'd be reasonably generous with the oil, but you don't want it to obviously be a slick on it. So this is an Iaido. This is not a shinken. Okay, so it's not a full live blade, but it should be close enough. It's got the weak groove on it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just do a chiburi and just talk about some of the things that went wrong, shall we say, in Shad's video. I thought Kyle, I believe it is, the other chap, one of the other presenters, I thought he did a really good job with the kind of spinning chiburi, and I thought actually in general he did quite well. Again, apologies for the wind. Okay, so we're just going to dab it on as if I've made a killing stroke. Okay, the thing about the chiburi is that it starts with the fingers and ends with the fingers. Alright, comes here, up, and okay, so this is what I'm left with after that big slick. Okay, which is much better than what was on there, but crucially the difference is that it hasn't gone up the blade at all compared to what the guys were doing on Shad's video. Okay, hasn't gone up the blade at all. A couple of spots on the other end. The point is, with the chiburi, there's different styles. This is the textbook, which is forward. It's a forward motion, and it's rolling with the fingers, and the emphasis on where I place the flick, so to speak, in the movement is down here. So it's not a swing across like this with the arm. This stays still, and that goes there. And the sound, the fastest part of this movement, is down towards the opponent who's dead. Okay? And the feeling is one of, I'm watching them, because if they were to move again, I would give them a neat little jab just to make sure that they're out for good. Okay, all right, so I don't mind messing up my hoodie to save my sword, as I'm sure you guys can relate to. So now let's talk about the noto. This was the other point that came up in Shad's video. So there was a little bit of a debate about whether or not it was more practical to simply put your sword in the end and drop it in. This is the way Shad did it. Just find the end and drop it in. Now listen to this really carefully. Listen to the sound. Can you hear all that rattling side to side? Because the saya is made of wood, that's now scratching the side of the blade. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing is, look at the time. 1, 2, 3. Right, even if I put it away fast. Ready, chiburi, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 seconds. Yeah. Okay. So now, if I do it from here, 1, 2. Okay. The other thing is, there are some schools that use their fingers, okay, to do this kind of thing, or they do it horizontally. Okay, can't do it fully properly here because I'm just using a Western belt to demonstrate. But in my school, what we do is shoulder the sword, and we form a mouth. This is called the koi guchi, koi mouth, like a fish. And what happens is, as we draw this back, the tip falls into the saya, and it's the left hand that initiates the movement onto the sword. And because I'm following the line of the saya, like this, right, that's the line of the saya, I'm on it, this glides in silently. And that way, you don't damage the saya or damage the sword. So, basically, this video is just a little bit of a response just to demonstrate that although some aspects of modern Budo, like Iaido and Batodo, that sort of thing, are beautified, I guess, in modern times, there are aspects of that. There is meaning and purpose and practicality to all of the movements, probably more so than you guys might have imagined at first glance. And as I said, this video is not to poke at anyone over at Shadiversity, because it's fantastic content. The guys go out of their way to get really cool stuff, put a lot of effort into it, and the production value is really good, and it's hugely entertaining, really informative. But obviously, being with Japanese martial arts, it was apparent just watching the video there's a couple of obviously little gaps in the knowledge, which they're very quick to point out that they're not experts on it. And in fact, neither am I. So just a couple of other things. You saw the spinning shibari. I don't do that one in my school, but there are straight ones, which again, you know, like you wouldn't shake the blood off that easily. It's just straight out like that. Okay, but it depends on the cut that you've executed, you know, and the situation. So one of the points with the shibari is that if it's kind of stuck in them, you need to free it up sometimes because it would jam. So it can sometimes be easier just to move it a little forward to open up a little pocket of air, which should help with the vacuum, and then straight out to the side. That's one way. With the kesa style shibari, which is the one I just showed you, we just turn it this way. Just basically imagine that wedging the meat like that, pop, and then this comes free. You know, the tip comes free, pop, and out, and then from there, pop. And all the while we're doing this, we have a feeling like if somebody should move, that we could initiate a cut from there. So zanshin, the lingering spirit, lingering mind, is really important in all these movements, and that's why they're present in the kata that we all do in things like Iaido, because the kata embody all the principles. There are scenarios within the kata, obviously some sort of practicality about it to give you a combative situation to demonstrate, but ultimately they're like scrolls with principles. And that's the best way to think of how we practice these arts. So yeah, anyway, look guys, fantastically produced video, really enjoyed it, and I had a good laugh. But yeah, there's a couple of points to take away if you want to fill in some of those little gaps in terms of what you guys were doing. So hope that helps. Right, take care, bye bye.